So our lead this hour, coming from the horse's mouth. That's right, from the horse's mouth. No, or in this case, Aaron Rodgers' mouth, the Packers quarterback leading Green Bay to a losing record after 7 weeks. Who had that on their bingo card? I did not. Green Bay losing to the Giants, the Jets, and the Commanders. Holy crap, that sucks in consecutive weeks. And so Rodgers speaking about the situation with what's gone wrong with the Wisconsin football team. And I don't know if you heard what he had to say or not, but Rodgers talking to Pat McAfee. He does a weekly paid appearance with McAfee. He's paid a lot of money. There's friends on that show. And so Rodgers popped up there, was asked about the situation with Green Bay, and he points out that the Packers making a lot of mental errors, a lot of screw-ups. In fact, rather than me go on and on here, why don't we just go to Aaron Rodgers himself? Here's Aaron Rodgers explaining all of the bad play by his team.
We had so many just mental errors and mistakes. It's not the kind of football we're used to playing over the years, you know. There have definitely been games, 4 or 5 seasons where we average, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 at the most, kind of mental errors or missed assignments per week. And some weeks you have like 4, 2 sometimes. This week, it's this season a lot more than that every single week. It's double digits every single week.
Yeah. All right. So now Rodgers also went on to say in that appearance with McAfee that the guys who are making too many mistakes shouldn't be playing. You got to start cutting some reps, is what Rodgers said. That's a direct quote from Rodgers. Now, when asked about his individual performance, Rodgers said that his quarterback coach, Tom Clements, gave him the highest single game grade in a loss against Washington. So let us discuss the question. What is the message that Aaron Rodgers is sending out into the cosmos with this rant? So I've got nosy neighbor, validation, and friendly fire. And we will combine all of these things together, and we are going to make an amazing dish of cheese curds. One of the great foods I've ever had, the cheese curd. Underrated. All right, so Aaron Rodgers, who for the last several years has been driving the VW hippie van around Green Bay, complete with the peace symbol on the side there. Everything's going to be okay. Nothing to worry about there. Knock it off. All that's negativity. Don't leave that alone there. The famous drop from years ago, relax. And a couple weeks back, when a Green Bay player said that the Packers would be in trouble if they lost to the Jets, Rodgers got all upset. You can't put that out into the universe, and that was his whole speech. And so this is a departure from that guy. You're not that guy, pal. You're not that guy. And so here's how I interpret it. Using my amazing computer-like brain to determine the arithmetic on these stories here. Rodgers' statement. So parsing the words of Rodgers, it's algebra. Aaron Rodgers is the nosy neighbor who's dishing small-town gossip, pointing the finger. He's pointing the finger at Matt LaFleur and his teammates, but mainly the coach, right? This reflects poorly on the head coach. There were rumblings back in the day, Mike McCarthy, who's now in Dallas, that he was at loggerheads with Aaron Rodgers, and Rodgers did not appreciate the rotund Mike McCarthy, and is it happening yet again? Green Bay has had a training camp. They've had 7 weeks of the regular season, and according to Rodgers, it's getting worse. It's not getting better. The same errors are happening every week, and so that's a direct reflection on Matt LaFleur, the head coach. At the same time, you talk about the daily double. Aaron Rodgers also calling his coworkers a bunch of buffoons, while he, of course, is Kurt Hennig. He's Mr. Perfect. He's got the star sticker from his favorite coach that he dragged out of retirement to go back to Green Bay. Now, on page 2, what is Aaron Rodgers' larger point? From the way I read the room here, Rodgers, what he's doing is providing validation. This is a validation situation. to one of this particular radio show's long-standing mantras. Now, if you've been with us a while, and even a short amount of time, you know there's a doctrine, if you will, a golden rules that we follow here. The better stories, always in the losing locker room, 99.9% of the time. A prospect is a suspect until proven otherwise is another one we hang our hat on. And stats tell you what has happened, not what's going to happen. But the big kahuna that we use all the time, most games are lost, they're not won. And Aaron Rodgers just entered the chat here. He also entered the spelling bee. And he spelled it all out, letter by letter. He spelled it out that the Packers are floundering. They're sinking into Green Bay because they're beating themselves. Now, he didn't name any specific names. I think we can determine who those players are just looking at the depth chart. But he spoke in general terms. He also did not include himself. Now, regardless of that, Rodgers at the very core, Rodgers is admitting that most games are lost. They are not won, which is what we have said for some time there. We actually stole that from a Hall of Famer, Casey Stengel, baseball manager from back in the day. All right, last word here. So how common are mental errors in the NFL? As common as the cold, as common as people complaining about the price of gas because they deserve to complain about the price of gas. This is a friendly fire, body blow, right? Friendly fire, blowing up your own fighter jet. And there's a term for it in the NFL. It's called an Emmy. Not the kind of Emmy you get when you're on some cheesy show and you win a little gold statue. We're talking about MEs, as in mental errors, Emmy. And in tennis, they call it unforced errors. Most teams in the NFL, and I know this is a degenerate game, but most teams in the NFL are within a whisker of each other. There's not that big a difference between the Philadelphia Eagles, who have the top record in football, and a team at the very bottom, someone like the Houston Texans, for example. That there's really not that big a gap between those teams. The thing that separates the sheep from the goats is the brain fog. John McEnroe, who played tennis back in his day as a broadcaster, he said, and many athletes have said, don't beat yourself. And that's really it. You get a good coach and you limit the amount of mistakes, you're going to win more games than you lose just by doing that. And if you have one or two guys making a lion's share of mistakes, then it's easy. You just cut out the deadwood. But what's going on in Green Bay right now would appear an entire position group is not doing their job. At that point, you're cooked. You're absolutely cooked. But Mr. Happy over there, Aaron Rodgers, pointing the finger at his coach and also his teammates, one by one, not naming them, but naming them in general. The coach he obviously named because he said these guys should be benched. He's calling out the coaching decision in Green Bay.